Funding for the river, Living the St. Lawrence, provided by Mattress Express, your instant comfort number bed dealer for Northern and Central New York. Online at mattressexpressny.com. Marble Key Realty, there for you 24/7, serving the unique needs of North Country homeowners. Online at marblekey.com. Big Apple Music, your car audio specialist, who also specialize in custom home theater and business networking. Online at rockedbybigapple.com. Armageddon Arsenal Supply, exercising our Second Amendment rights, located on Route 11 near the Fort Drum main gate. Tremblay's Handyman Services, supporting production of the River, Living the St. Lawrence series. And by Lake Ontario Realty. Serving the region for 18 years, Lake Ontario Realty is once again the volume leader in Northern New York for the 4th straight year. Serving all of Northern New York, including the St. Lawrence River and the Eastern Ontario communities. See them on Facebook and online at lakeontariorealty.com.
Today on the river, Living the St. Lawrence. Last week, the guys talked about fishing the St. Lawrence, why the fish are bigger, and why major fishing tournaments are being added to the region. But wait, one 30-minute show wasn't enough, so they're doing it again. So welcome to part 2.
What I want to get to is that small town that you see in every Hallmark movie.
Right.
With the Main Street and the Apple Fest,
right.
And everybody knows everybody. But if someone comes in who's new, they're welcome and with open arms.
That's today on the river, Living the St. Lawrence. Welcome to part 2 of Fishing the St. Lawrence. Last weekend, the guys talked about how major fishing tournaments have come to the Thousand Islands. It seems fishing only got better after invasive species like the goby fish were first seen in the region 30 years ago. Let's rejoin the guys again for part 2 of Fishing the St. Lawrence.
I'm not going to take this to a different direction, but do you know any of the history with Robert Moses and bringing that whole seaway concept up to the North Country and the flooding of some towns and homes on the Canadian U.S. side? Is that
I've only lived it a little bit, and technically I haven't lived it, but because of all the people I've interacted with, being the elected supervisor in Waddington, it's a bone of contention, to say the least. Mm-hmm. What people don't understand is that was part of the infrastructure plan that Eisenhower had. They always think, the highways. Eisenhower, right.
Right.
Well, the Seaway was part of that. Eisenhower was in Messina with the Queen. Richard Nixon was in Messina with the Queen. Mm-hmm. It was a huge undertaking.
Mm-hmm. Well, they at one point they had ships that were backed up. They couldn't get through because the water levels would recede sometime in, I'm assuming, October, November, and they got stuck there. I would assume they would have to go back to Cleveland or Detroit, wherever they came from. Mm-hmm. So Robert Moses, the major civil engineer of America, who basically ushered in the whole era of interstate highways like Route 80 and so forth, he was a very controversial figure, particularly down in New York City, where he was all part of urban renewal, which urban renewal affected Watertown back in the mid-'60s under Johnson. So it was a necessary evil, but the fruits of their efforts, as you said, Alex, earlier, said at the time, in the 50s and 60s, people were losing their lifestyle, they're losing their property. We saw that in the Tennessee River Valley. We saw that all across the country, but progress had to be made. And as a consequence, now Waddington is a huge force when it comes to the fishing. But that said, it's a small town. It doesn't have enough hotel rooms to cater to or camping areas. So again, I keep on coming back to that, Alex, because it's like, you're all dressed up, but you have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
We have the best fishing. How can people be accommodated to come up here, and how can we take advantage of that?
So I guess the first step, right, is, we were just talking earlier about the marina in Waddington. So we're going to be building a marina, about $3 million marina, right in the heart of Waddington. That's great. It's not even going to cost a taxpayer a dime. It's all New York State Power Authority funded money, because they basically pay us reparations for taking our land all the way, back in the day. And it's a federal contract that we have with them that's negotiated every 50 years and then looked at every 10. Relicensing review comes up in 2023, and hopefully I'll be around for that. But as far as an elected official, I think I'm definitely going to be around in 2023. But the other thing is, I'm on the board of directors for the Clark House preservation. The Clark House is one of the oldest. The current structure was 1893, I believe. But before that, it was a wooden structure, and it was the hotel. It was one of the 3 hotels in Waddington. The other hotel, the Union Hotel, has been changed into apartments now, which is fine. It's full up all the time, so I have no problem with that. But the Clark House has been this, 25 years ago, they wanted to demolish it and turn it into a parking lot. So now we finally have, like you're saying, we need these locations, right? I think we need to take state money, local money, private money, put it all together into places like the Clark House, where we can save our history, but also modernize and make a little boutique hotel. I mean, that's all really Waddington needs. You got 40 rooms in a hotel. That's all Waddington would need. It'd be full out booked for those tournaments, and probably booked, half capacity for most of the year.
I seem to remember a gentleman speaking at one point about getting some duplexes or something built as you head out towards Cold Creek, and maybe the town could benefit from that.
I'm sure.
It's been a while, but somebody floated that idea about some village-owned properties that they could be rented out. But
someone with forward thinking. I mean,
Yes.
we have investors right here. I mean, the proprietor of this building that we're in right now is a young guy. He's in his 30s, and he owns a tremendous amount of property up here. So that's who we need, obviously, up on the river. And we have that. We've always had that. But now opportunity because of COVID. And again, one thing I did speak with a realtor up on the river, and I've spoken to others inland as well, as far as properties are concerned, that the real estate market right now, believe it or not, is a boom, particularly on waterfront. Even when Trump came here, when he was running for election back in 2016, he just couldn't believe the amount of waterfront. So we know when you have taxation, when you have properties on the waterfront, a lot of young blood coming in, taking out old bungalows, old places that were built in the 40s and 50s and replacing them, upgrading. So the assessment values are going up. And I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, obviously, as you can tell, I'm thinking, where can we build a better and bigger foundation for money? And it's happening right now, Alex, right?
So specifically in Waddington, one thing that we've talked about, we have something called the Local Government Task Force. It's all the affected municipalities by the St. Lawrence Seaway project, right? That we are the group that negotiates that every 10-year review.
Right.
The last time they had the review, they fought hard, and they got the money that we're going to be using for the marina, which is great. Same thing with the Messina intake. They're doing a huge expansion over there, and that's why Messina has been able to book all of these great tournaments, because they have this huge facility now that the Power Authority built for them, right? But one thing that's been a bone of contention since the beginning of time, as far as this Seaway stuff goes, is everyone's always said, we want our land back. Give us our land back. Well, here's the thing. We've had the land for over 20 years now, and it's still just sitting there. It's just in town property hands. So town of Waddington has, we call it the Iroquois Dam property. You know that very well.
Sure do.
There's Iroquois Dam, and then there's a bunch of property from Highway 37 all the way back to the dam. It's now owned by the town. All premier prime real estate right on the water. Same thing with Leachman Point over by the beach in Waddington. It's this huge point that was created by the Seaway. It used to just be a regular peninsula that was the same level as everything else. And then they put all the spoils on it. So it's this huge mountain, if you will, that just has these incredible views of the river, of Canada, of downtown Waddington. Ogden Island is a 3-mile long island in Waddington that's on the American side between America and Canada, right in the middle of the river. We can't touch that. New York State won't let us touch it. That's a problem in itself. But what we've been discussing with the relicensing review is we want the New York State Power Authority to help us build the infrastructure. great, you gave us the land back so we can tell the people in our hometown, like, we got the land back that they took 70 years ago. But what are we going to do with it? Just let it sit and pay off the tax rolls for the next 70 years, but in town hands? You know, we need to be able to have the money not only to build the infrastructure, but to also market that property.
Right.
And guess what? As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't mind selling that property below, what is considered a fair, not a fair price, but like a premium price, whatever it would be.
Sure.
We have to sell it for fair market value, but fair market value
might not be enough
for an assessor up here is really low.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what someone from the city would pay for waterfront property, we would sell it less than that, right? And we wouldn't mind if it was going to local people or if it was going to somebody from out of here. But the problem is, a lot of these properties that are the prime properties there's no water, there's no sewer, there's no electric, there's no road getting back to it. So how are we, as the town, supposed to just take taxpayer money and dump all of it into there just so that we can get a new property on the tax rolls? And guess how much they're paying in taxes just to the town of Waddington? $2.14 per thousand. $2.14 per thousand, because we keep our taxes low for our people. We're in the lowest, taxes in the county. I don't think just selling all the land for $100,000 just to get it back on the tax roll is going to do anything, because it's not going to equate to anything. $100,000 at 2.14 per thousand. What's that? $214 a year?
Maybe like the Seaway, that investment may pay off in the long run, but to realize that return will take a long time, and investors have to see what you see along that riverfront. But I've been to Iroquois. There are foundations up there from the camps and the kitchens that used to be for the guys that built that Iroquois lock system and the dam, and it's nice and flat up there. It's not swampy. It's buildable land.
And it's the other thing about it is it's not farmable. It's not very good land to farm on. So you're not ticking off the farmers by taking away, stuff that they could be using for fertile soil. Sure. But it's prime property, and I would love to see something happen with it, but we need to build that infrastructure.
I mean, I'm being optimistic because, again, the Bassmaster Elite Series last year was tremendous. And, again, that's coming from someone who has no clue about fishing whatsoever. But when something is highlighted about our area, and let's face it, the Thousand Islands is a beautiful area. We know that. Maybe not the greatest area during the winter, and I hate to downplay it that way, but obviously our winters are more harsh in this area than others. But between May 31st, right around Memorial Day, right through October, guys, it seems like our falls are getting longer and longer. We just have so many opportunities to take advantage of the fact that the fishing has gotten better because of invasive species and because of the zebra mussels and so forth. All these things that look like it was a lemon, but we've made lemonade out of all this. And Alex, as a young guy in politics and whatnot, can someone bring legislation to Albany or perhaps to the feds to see if we can enhance things here for the future, or is that too premature at this point?
Every 50 years, there's a federal relicensing with the Power Authority, with the Seaway. In those affected towns, I think I am one of them. I am the town supervisor of Waddington, right? Those towns are going to need help, right? If this region could come together, if all the politicians, no matter if they're a Democrat, Republican, communist, freaking anything, that's the issue here. Everything's become such a political divide, and I'm not going to get into that discussion. But if we could all be a united front along the river, whether you're down in Clayton and you're not even in the affected zone, or if you're up in Messina and you're at the heart of the affected zone.
Right.
Messina, Louisville, Waddington, and Lisbon, those are the 4 affected towns by the Seaway. They're the 4 towns that are actually going to get a say every 50 years. The next one is 2053.
Oh, boy.
which the crazy part is, I think that's closer than 1990.
Could we speed that up by any chance?
I'm sure we. So the Power Authority always says,
due to COVID,
if we ever need anything, we can always go to them. The problem is you never have the teeth to really make anything happen. That is when their federal license is up. The state cannot operate that dam unless they have their federal license.
Isn't that something? So
if we had, whoever it is, I know Chuck Schumer's been there for a long time, but he's not going to be there in 2053.
No,
I can tell you
not.
that.
No.
Whoever's in Chuck Schumer's position in 2023, if we had someone who is in the same position as Chuck Schumer right now, whether you like him or not, Chuck Schumer is the majority leader of the Senate. If you have the majority leader of the Senate as one of your representatives from New York, when 2053 rolls around, get him in line with your congressman or woman, in line with your state assemblyman, state state senator, all the local officials, have everything ready to go. Bring in the biggest law firm you can from New York City to help you with the argument,
Right.
and get it done. It was almost sad the last time round. They had local attorneys. They didn't have any help. It was the big guys picking on the little guys. And the Power Authority hates when we bring this up, but Buffalo, they had to go through a relicensing in Buffalo too. Buffalo got all that Riverwalk stuff, everything at the Buffalo Billion, that all happened because of the relicensing. And they got such a sweet deal compared to us, and it's because they got the population, they got the politicians, they got everything they need to do in order to make sure that they get the funding that they need. We need that up here, and it's going to take a big effort, and it's going to take years. And that's why I'm talking about it now, because 2053 is the next time we're going to be opening that up.
Is there an ideal region down in Alabama, where I hear the fishing is great in Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky? It's like all of a sudden, wait a minute, St. Lawrence has the best fishing? What would be a good model area? Is there anything that we should model against or compare to in the future?
What I've always told people is every town along the St. Lawrence River has their niche, right? I can't even think of it right now. Pulaski, they're trout, right?
Big, well, the salmon. Yeah,
Salmon, that's what it is. Yeah.
Big
So
time.
Pulaski, salmon.
Yeah.
Pulaski, salmon.
Right.
Okay, great.
Oswego, too.
So if Waddington is bass, great. Waddington might be bass and carp. Who knows? You know, it might be a region thing, but every town that's on the river can utilize the river in whatever way they want. Whether they're like Clayton, I always think of Clayton as like the premier, like ritzy, common man can go and feel fancy type of place.
Exactly.
And that's awesome. And I've tried to model if you've ever seen our pavilion we have in Waddington, we've tried to model ourselves after Clayton, because what I want to get to is that small town that you see in every Hallmark movie.
Right.
With the Main Street and the Apple Fest, and everybody knows everybody. But if someone comes in who's new, they're welcomed and with open arms.
And that's Waddington.
We could look at places like St. Augustine or St. Simon's Islands, Georgia, big fishing communities, and you see their masts dangling in the seas from miles away. So you know there's a marina nearby as you're driving through. But it's not outside the realm of possibility, like you said, burying cable lines and making nice fancy street lights. Even like a Savannah with all the Spanish moss.
Exactly.
And but you got to have the vision for it, and you have to be a good salesman, which we could probably pull off if we wanted to. So I'll start working on that and the kitchen at my house, and we'll see what shakes out first. But I like that. You can niche it down. So this area is known for this, and like Clayton, that wooden boat, antique boat museum.
Yeah.
That's their thing. So you can draw on that and expand on that. But I like the idea of each community developing its own character and then selling that character.
Perfect example. Clayton and Sackett's Harbor. They're almost too close, right? And you're like, oh, how they compete with each other? No, you get the history people that are like, oh my God, Sackett's Harbor, and they go to Sackett's Harbor, but even like the architecture, you got that like old, everything's from like late 1700s to early 1800s for architecture, right in Sackett's Harbor, and then in Clayton, it's more late 1800s. That typical Main Street that you see just like here with all the flat roofing and whatnot. When you go to Sackett's Harbor, it's like
a lot older. And who could forget, we're just the proximity from Cape Vincent to Kingston. Kingston is a 400-year-old city. And you can see it. You feel like you're walking through the streets of Europe somewhere in Belgium. So that history, so there's so much of an attraction to this area. There's no question. But getting back to my question earlier, these other areas like Augustine or areas in Arkansas or in Georgia, do they have the hotels? Do they have the accommodations to say, okay, we have a tournament? Look, you can't have a Super Bowl in every city in America, especially a Super Bowl. Like you couldn't have one in Buffalo. You just couldn't do it. It has nothing to do with the weather. You couldn't accommodate all the people there. So when you have 4 tournaments coming in and a future filled with fish, bass, walleye, whatever you want to say, carp, can you accommodate all the people within the time frame between May and October? Do they have big hotels down in these small areas, Josh?
They do. And speaking of Waddington, I know they didn't get blindsided with an event coming their way. I'm sure that someone did a feasibility study, and if we wanted to do that for the other river communities, someone could put together that feasibility study and be like, listen, if we want this to continue, and we could take it to the board and pitch it, you have to give us either discounted rates on some riverfront properties or riverfront land so that developers can be incentivized to come in and build, because as more people come in and this takes off, and I'm even hearing wind of 3 more tournaments coming into Cape Vincent, offer some incentives for developers. And my background's in construction too. You have to have 80 cents on the dollar. If it's not going to make any sense, you're not going to get any return. So you could do those feasibility studies, say there's no place for people to stay. If they come in transit, there's no parking for people to park their boats. I know the spillway in Messina. We used to launch our boats there for work, and they've expanded that quite a bit. But maybe initially set up just a de facto team to go out and start doing the market research and figuring out what would be needed, how much money that'll cost, what kind of grants and things are associated. And
one thing that, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate here just because it's my experience. We brought these people to Waddington and we didn't have any place for them, but we brought the tournament. People stepped up, offered the people to come into their homes. A lot of people did it just because that's who they are in Waddington, right? But some people capitalized on it. Here's a great opportunity right here, or a great story right here. Guy who owns the local liquor store in Waddington just bought the local liquor store maybe 3 years ago. So he bought it, took 3 months, refurbished the entire thing, made it into a 1-bedroom Airbnb. And that's all it is an Airbnb. Because he knows that there's going to be a time that they're going to need it. When he was building it, people were asking him if they could rent it out for 3 months at a time. I'm a fan of capitalism as well, but like people are seeing, there's a lack of this. And they're taking it upon themselves. So there's also that working in tangent as well. What I'd like to see, and what I would like to study a little bit more while you were just talking, was what happened with the Olympics in Lake Placid. How did they accommodate people? I hear stories that they took some of them to the local community college and put them up there. All these different things, and then like a stroke of luck, Miracle on Ice happens, 1980, right? And now everybody's like, oh, Lake Placid, I know what Lake Placid is. Miracle on Ice happened there. Like everybody knows where Lake Placid is because Miracle on Ice happened there. They had the Olympics there in 1932. Everything was easy back, back in the day. Like there was probably like 3 people in the Olympics in 1932. But
Sonia Henning.
But then you had 1980 happen, and I hear, like I said, I hear stories of local community college. That's where they kept some of the people. People were staying in other people's houses.
Well, they had the prison there that was converted. It was dual purpose. It was going to be a prison, but for the Olympic Village, it was their village, and then became a prison afterwards.
And now they've had these beautiful hotels built since then, because and they still have the Olympic facility there, so the Olympic people can actually still come and train for it's.
Lake Placid has seen its ups and downs, though, since 1980. In fact, the actual toboggan run, or the bobsled run was state-of-the-art, and that went into disrepair, but they have since fixed that. But it's possible that New York City could get the actual Winter Olympics and obviously utilize the Catskills and the Adirondacks and Saranac Lake, which is bigger than Lake Placid. So there's that opportunity. Could it ever happen? Could it come back again? Well, now that the rules have changed, if you can introduce New York as I guess you could say the ceremonial area, especially for the hockey, which would make sense because a lot of the NHL players play now in the Olympics. Who knows? That could happen. We'd love to see that. I wish I was at the 1980 Olympics. I heard it was a fantastic thing. I don't even know if you were born at that time.
I was not. But I tell you what, like the thing, I guess what I'm trying to bring it all back in, right? Like if there could be a 1980 Olympics, where the Miracle on Ice happened event for Waddington, like what would I see that event? Bassmasters is great, right? But there's this untapped potential with the festival that we hold around the tournament. The biggest name I think we've had was we had a guy that was on American Idol or something, or maybe it was Travis Tritt or somebody like that came and played, right? I would love,
not Travis Trout.
So he was on Harry Potter too, then.
Right? Right. But I would love to see Steve Miller. But Steve Miller brings out people. I went to Steve Miller in Watertown.
A couple of years ago.
A few years ago, and it was packed.
It was.
The communities, are they getting involved in more of the going out to see venues and small musical gatherings and things? I know, like Sackett's Harbor has the old comedy store or the comedy club.
They did, not any longer. No,
I've seen small musical acts there where there's 20, 30 people at most. Little open bar, and they bring them in. I know there's old buildings that could be set up like that, just a little bit but I don't know if you see that trend Are kids these days going out and enjoying those things? Even post-COVID, would that be something that's sustainable?
I think once COVID is officially gone, I just think that people are going to be irking to get out. Eventually, all that will flatten out, if you will. But the need for entertainment and the need to get out of the house and do family events, I think that's going to be paramount. And I think a lot of people are definitely going to come to the table for that. So in as far as what DPAO does with the Steve Miller concert and so forth, it was very expensive, by the way, Alex. It's incredible how much he costs.
Really?
But you can get other up-and-coming acts. And in fact, at the end of the day, now you can probably get someone for a lot less, or maybe someone, you're not going to get Kiss up here, but you could get someone that is up and coming. I just think the aspect of just having live concerts, it doesn't matter who it is,
right,
coupled with an actual tournament, it doesn't matter. It just adds flavor to all of that. Let's go 3 years from now, 2024. What does the St. Lawrence River look like from Messina all the way down to Cape Vincent, in your opinion, guys?
Well, there's going to be a brand new marina in Waddington. And I think there's going to be even more of a reinsurgence, even more than before, of Canadians wanting to come over here and experience what we have over here, and vice versa.
Right.
I see just untapped potential. I see more homes. We had 4 or 5 homes being built in Waddington just on the water this last year.
Right.
So, as long as that waterfront property is available, there's going to be people who are going to come and buy it and want to utilize it. It's young families that have 2-person income that are doing well for themselves, state jobs, building nice houses on the water for their
and
families
working
to enjoy.
remotely, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah.
So the world changed, guys. Do we benefit from this? Especially when you
Absolutely.
have this background, it's called the St. Lawrence River?
If you're not geographically dependent anymore, why would you not want to look out and listen to a loon and the sunset? And that's what makes the U.S. side a little bit better, if I'm going to go ahead and say that.
Go right ahead.
We get the nice sunset. So
We do.
If you're not geographically dependent, why would you not? And if there is a turn in the market, if the real estate bubble does burst, those people's second homes are the first ones to go.
Right.
And it makes opportunity for people to come in and update those homes. So
Right.
just in my scope of work and being along that river, people are updating things left and right. It's
Quality waterfront is like gold.
It is.
Really is.
It is.
It maintains its value and then some. So it's only going to get better.
And then, if I could, 2014 is back in effect.
Right.
They are maintaining those levels. Last time I talked to somebody in the National Joint Commission. So the flooding should not be an issue. I think they looked at levels up as far as Lake Superior to see what would be happening downriver and down the flow from that. So we should be anticipating that there's no damage that we've experienced, like Hurricane Sandy and all that stuff. So you have the one point of authority that's making all those calls and which lever they're turning to try to get the levels of the river 30 miles up.
Gentlemen, first of all, thanks for being with us today.
Wow, that was a great program once again. It's great to see the fish keep getting bigger and more fishermen are coming to the beautiful Thousand Islands. I'm Lori Doldo. We thank you for watching and we encourage you to see us soon for our next episode of The River, Living the St. Lawrence.
Thank you to our sponsors, Mattress Express, Marble Key Realty, Big Apple Music, Armageddon Arsenal Supply, Tremblay Handyman Services, and Lake Ontario Realty. Serving the region for 18 years, Lake Ontario Realty is once again the volume leader in Northern New York for the 4th straight year. They worked hard to be number one, serving all of Northern New York, including the St. Lawrence River and the Eastern Ontario communities. See them on Facebook and online at lakeontariorealty.com.